Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to really get into the U.S. Constitution, the foundation document.
Absolutely. It's fundamental.
We want to peel back the layers on its structure, the powers it sets out, and, well, the core ideas behind it all.
Ideas that are still incredibly relevant.
Right. So our mission for you, the listener, is to go beyond just the basics. We want to understand the changes, the continuities when the Constitution replaced the Articles of Confederation.
And get a real feel for the design of American government.
Exactly. A shortcut to understanding how it's all meant to work. We're using insights from a source called the U.S. Constitution. Structure, powers, and principles.
A pretty comprehensive look.
It is. And just to set the scene quickly, this document, hammered out in Philadelphia, 1787, it wasn't starting from scratch.
No, definitely not. It came directly out of the problems with the Articles of Confederation.
The feeling was the federal government under the Articles was, well, just too weak, right?
Toothless, essentially. Couldn't get much done.
So the framers wanted to create a central government that could actually govern. But, and this is key one that was limited, dynamic but limited.
Precisely. Avoiding tyranny was always front of mind.
Okay, so it's a big shift from the Articles. We know the government was weak, but what was the real frustration? What wasn't working on a deeper level?
Well, it was more than just weak. It was genuinely dysfunctional. Think about trying to run a country where the central government couldn't effectively collect taxes.
Right, or enforce its own laws consistently across states.
Exactly. Or even conduct foreign policy coherently. You had states acting almost like independent countries.
Chaos, basically.
Pretty much. Economic turmoil, internal squabbles. So the delegates in Philly knew they had to give the federal government more power, more influence.
But not too much power.
That's the crucial part. They were expanding federal authority, yes, but they were incredibly careful building in mechanisms to prevent that power from being abused. It's a quite remarkable foresight.
Okay, so let's unpack one of those big mechanisms. Federalism, we hear the term all the time. Beyond just sharing power, what's a key dynamic there?
Yeah, sharing power is the textbook definition, national government and state governments both having authority. But the really interesting thing is the tension it creates.
Tension. How so?
It's not a neat division. It's a constant negotiation, sometimes a legal fight, over where one authority ends and the other begins. It makes governing dynamic, sometimes messy.
So what happens when they clash? When a state law contradicts a federal one?
Well, the Constitution has an answer for that. It's called the Supremacy Clause, Article 6.
Okay.
It basically says that when there's a conflict involving powers specifically given to Congress, the enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8, the national law wins.
So, like, if the federal government declares war?
A state can't just say, nope, we're sitting this one out. Federal law is supreme in those specific areas defined in the Constitution. It ensures national unity where it's deemed essential.
Okay, that makes sense for federal powers. But it sounds like the federal government could just keep expanding its reach then. How are state powers protected?
Good question. The framers worried about that too. That's why we have the 10th Amendment, the Reserved Powers Amendment.
The counterbalance.
Exactly. It explicitly says any powers the Constitution doesn't give to the federal government or forbid the states from using are kept by the states or by the people.
So if it's not listed in Article 1, Section 8 as a federal power,
then it's generally considered a state power. Think about things like setting up schools, local police forces, defining marriage or divorce. Those aren't typically federal powers.
so they belong to the states.
Right. It ensures states retain significant authority over many aspects of daily life.
So federalism is this sort of dynamic balancing act. Specific powers to the feds, everything else to the states, and a rule for when they overlap. Power is deliberately spread out.
You got it. Spread vertically, you could say.
Okay, let's shift then. From the vertical spread to the horizontal spread within the federal government. Separation of powers.
Right. Another core principle. The idea here is to prevent any one part of the federal government from becoming too dominant.
So you divide the power up again.
Exactly.
No.
Into three distinct branches. You've got the legislative branch, Congress. Their main job is making laws.
Okay.
Then the executive branch, the president and the administration responsible for carrying out, enforcing those laws.
Right.
And the judicial branch, the Supreme Court and lower federal courts, their job is interpreting the laws, making sure they line up with the Constitution.
And that interpretive power, judicial review, It wasn't super explicit at first, was it?
No, it really evolved, especially after the Marbury v. Madison case.
Mm.
But it's become a massive check on the other two branches over time.
So legislative, executive, judicial. Makes sense on paper.
Hmm.
But how do they actually check each other? Give us a concrete example.
Sure. The way laws get made is a perfect example of checks and balances in action.
Okay.
So the legislature writes and passes a bill. But it's not law yet. It goes to the president, the executive. The president can sign it, making it law. Or
Veto it.
veto it. That's a direct check on Congress's power. A presidential no.
Congress isn't powerless then, right?
Not at all. The legislature gets a check on the executive's veto. They can override the veto.
How?
They need a supermajority vote, 2/3 in both the House and the Senate. It's a high bar, deliberately difficult.
Wow. So it forces cooperation or at least significant consensus.
Exactly. It's a built-in negotiation. No single branch can just run the show. It's designed for friction, in a way.
And intricate dance, like you said before. Very deliberate, ensuring power wasn't concentrated.
That's the key takeaway.
So stepping back, why all this complexity? Federalism, separation of powers, checks and balances. What was the driving philosophy?
It really comes down to the framers' view of human nature. They weren't starry-eyed optimists.
No.
No.
Okay.
They were realists. They understood that power corrupts, that people tend to abuse authority if it's unchecked.
So they built a system assuming leaders wouldn't always be virtuous.
Pretty much. James Madison put it perfectly in Federalist 51. He wrote, "If men were angels, no government would be necessary."
Right.
Since people aren't angels, you need government. But since the people in government aren't angels either, you need to control the government.
And the controls were these complex structures.
Exactly. Federalism and separation of powers were their practical solutions to the problem of potential tyranny, born from a realistic understanding of human ambition.
So this intricate web of distributing power across different levels, different branches, it was all a grand plan to protect liberty by preventing power from accumulating in one place.
That's the heart of it. Create a government strong enough to be effective, yes, but structure it so it couldn't easily become oppressive. Diffuse the power, safeguard the people.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what we've seen today is that moving from the Articles to the Constitution was this huge shift towards a stronger federal government, but one designed with really ingenious limits built in.
Limits based on those two big ideas, federalism and separation of powers.
Sharing power between nation and state, and dividing power among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches.
And overlaying that with checks and balances so they could all constrain each other.
And understand this isn't just, a history lesson. It's crucial for making sense of how the U.S. government works.
Yeah.
Or sometimes struggles to work even today.
Absolutely. You see these principles playing out constantly.
Right. So here's something for you to think about after we finish. Given that the framers designed this system of diffused power specifically to prevent tyranny, how do you see those checks and balances working, or maybe not working, in our current political climate?
Especially when things get really polarized.
Exactly. What does today's situation mean for that original balance they were trying to strike between having an effective government and protecting individual freedom? Something to chew on.